Welcome back to another episode of the Draw Control podcast. On today's episode, I'm joined by sophomore on the Syracuse women's lacrosse team, Kaci Benoit. As a freshman, Kaci was voted to the ACC All-Freshman Team. She started every game on defense and helped the Orange hold their opponents to less than 10 goals in 10 games. Kaci also had one goal, 21 ground balls, and 15 caused turnovers last season. Kaci was also a member of the All-ACC Academic Team. Before college, Kaci was a two-time All-America honoree and played in the 2023 New Balance Senior All-America game. She led her high school team to a 22-0 record and the league and state championships as a senior. And I'm super excited to have her on today. So welcome to the podcast, Kaci, and how is everything going?
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here. Just got back to school like this past week. It's been really exciting, really fun, getting back in the swing of things, seeing like my whole team. It's great.
Yeah, how was your summer overall? And did you do anything interesting, whether it was lacrosse related or not?
Summer was super relaxing, which was really nice coming off like a super long season. Went on vacation with my parents to Florida, went to see two concerts with my friends, saw John Summit, super awesome. Yeah, it was nice.
That's cool. I feel like John Summit's been sort of the man of the summer, it feels like. I've
Yeah,
seen a lot of
he
his clips
was.
on Instagram.
I
Yeah,
saw him too
definitely.
this summer. He was awesome. He was so good. So, what are some things that you've been working on like over the summer to kind of prepare yourself to get back into the season?
Yeah, I've definitely been working on my speed and strength. Like in the past summers, I've always done that, but this summer, definitely focusing on it. Coming off a long season, definitely a little tired and like fatigued, but I think that was a big thing for me and one of like an asset like on my part. So just keeping that up and improving on it.
Now, I sort of wanted to start off this podcast sort of talking about the beginning of your career and sort of working all the way up to where you are today with Syracuse. So, from the research that we did on yourself, it says that you're from Darien, Connecticut. So, talk about growing up there and how'd you start playing lacrosse?
Yeah, so actually, I grew up in Branford, Connecticut, and I lived there for a good portion of my life. I moved to Darien my sophomore year of high school. So when I was younger, I was like always into sports. My mom always got me into sports right away. I was playing tennis, basketball, gymnastics, like the whole spiel. But then I started really getting into lacrosse like around fifth grade, and then I stuck with it for a while, and then I played for Nor'easter in the beginning of my lacrosse career, and then I switched over to Grizzlies, and I was gonna go to Loomis Chaffee for boarding school for high school, but then COVID happened, so they were like, no boarding, you could only commute, and it would be like an hour and a half drive for me. So I was like, that won't work. And we were thinking about moving. Like I was playing for the Grizzlies. My dad would work in New York City. So we decided to move to Darien, like literally within a span of a week. It was actually the craziest thing ever. And we like move into an apartment. I'm there for like once school starts, and I'm playing field hockey for them. I'm playing lacrosse for them, playing Grizzlies. So I had like a bunch of friends from Grizzlies who played for Darien. And it happened so fast, but I think that was like one of the best decisions my parents and like have ever made, because I don't think I would be at Syracuse if we didn't move and if I didn't play for Grizzlies, because I think I had a lot of growth in my lacrosse skills from being on that team.
Yeah, for sure. So, growing up, who were kind of like your favorite teams or favorite players to watch?
I was definitely a big fan of Dempsey Arsenal, and Cindy Pareca. Big
Go
fans of them.
teams.
Yeah.
Sure.
Now, before college, like you mentioned, you played for your high school at Darien, and I think for our audience that doesn't know, a lot of great lacrosse players went to Darien, including yourself, Bella Goodwin, and Shea Dolce, just to name a few. What was your high school lacrosse experience like, and what's some of like your favorite, I guess, just talk a little bit about your high school lacrosse experience and what that was like for yourself.
I really think playing lacrosse at Darien High School is like one of the best opportunities you could ever have. Um, it really set me up for college, and I owe a lot of my success to that. I was competing against the best players every single day, playing defense with Shea Dolce as my goalie, going against Chloe Humphrey on attack like every single day I practice. You don't get much better than like that. So I think that really like goes to my success. And I think probably my favorite memory would be playing against St. Paul's at the USA headquarters our senior year and beating them by 1. And we had like this super long rain delay for like 2 hours. The game was like literally back and forth, like one goal at the whole game. And we came out with the win in Maryland. So that was pretty awesome. And then that whole year, my senior year, we never did this before my whole time I was there. We beat New Canaan. New Canaan is our rival. We beat New Canaan in the regular season. We beat them in the league championship and we beat them in the state championship and we went undefeated that whole season. So that's one of my favorite lacrosse memories ever.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's so cool, like translating things from high school, especially because you came from such a stacked high school and like so much history with that high school. So I'm sure that kind of definitely translated into playing in Syracuse and playing with very high end athletes. So kind of talk about your recruiting process going into that and how like that kind of high school set you up and as well as like your recruiting process and then why Syracuse versus kind of the other schools that you might have looked at.
Mm-hmm. I actually had like Syracuse was not on my radar for like the longest time. I really like never even like thought about it. I was like, no way I could like go to Syracuse. But then my club coach Lisa Lindley was like, are you interested in Syracuse? And I was like, Syracuse? And I was like, yes, definitely. So like I set up my visits. I went to Ohio State, Syracuse. I was gonna go to Michigan, I was gonna go to Florida, and I was gonna go to Clemson. And Ohio State was my first visit. Loved it. It was like great time. And then I went to Syracuse and it just like the whole environment, like you go to other schools and it's like you're there and you're like with the football team, like you see the football game, you're there, but it feels like you're there for football. When I was at Syracuse, I was like, oh, I'm here for lacrosse. Like so
For sure.
many people care about lacrosse around here and like the environment playing in the dome, like it just felt so different and like the history behind Syracuse just made me feel like this is the place where I'm supposed to be.
What was like the biggest adjustment you had to make to college lacrosse when you once you first got to campus with Syracuse?
I would say like we play a very like specific style of defense and it's a very like strategic zone type of defense. So I think the biggest adjustment was just like understanding that and like all the concepts of that. And also in the beginning of the like fall, I was playing down low. I was playing big post, but then during the season I played the corner. So I think just like transitioning from those two spots was definitely like probably the biggest adjustment.
So kind of talk about what it's like playing in the ACC. You know, it's such a competitive conference and especially at a very, very high school like Syracuse, like kind of just talk about your adjustment to that level of play
I might be biased, but the ACC is definitely the best league.
for sure.
And I think it's like such an honor to play in the ACC because you're playing against like the highest competition every single game. And I think because of that, it sets you up for success in the postseason because it's not like you're playing some like easier games. Like every single game, you need to like bring it. And that just makes you work even harder and like makes practice be even harder.
Now, obviously, Syracuse is a really good academic university as well. So, how have you learned to both balance academics and lacrosse at such a high level?
It's definitely a time commitment, but I think high school really like set me up and also like the way I was like brought up. Um I'm very focused and like very driven. So like if you have like an outline and like a plan and like you have your goals, just setting the time each day and like doing what you need to do will definitely like set you on the right track. And there's like a ton of resources here. Like we have our academic advisors, like tutors if you need them. So everyone's here to help you, which is like so nice. But just like being on yourself too and like having set goals and having a plan and just like being ready to like sit down and like accomplish them.
Yeah, so this past season, kind of talk about your team's performance. And, you know, as a freshman, it's definitely very, very new and a lot coming at you at once. So, like, kind of just talk about like the most memorable games that you played in or most memorable moments, especially like competing for the ACC title or getting to the Final Four. Kind of just talk about that.
I think one of my most memorable moments was the first game I played in. And I was face guarding Izzy Skane, and I was like, oh my gosh, no way, this is real right now. Like I was watching you on TV last year. But it's such a great moment. And also like we had a ton of veterans on the team last year. We had so many fifth years and so many seniors that all played. And they were always super welcoming and they were such great leaders to me and like taught me so much, not even like just about lacrosse, but about like being a student athlete and being at Syracuse. So they were like great people. Um, Playing in the ACC, beating UNC at home, 20-5, I think it was something like that. Um, at Notre Dame, beating them, beating UVA by one. Just like being able to travel to last year as a freshman and like seeing Notre Dame and seeing all these places, it was just like so amazing to me. And I was like, it felt very surreal.
What's it like guarding Izzy Skane? What makes her such a great attacker from your perspective?
I think she's just like so well-rounded. Like she has amazing stick skills. She's extremely shifty. She has the speed, but she could also has the power. Like I think she's extremely well-rounded. So she's her and Charlotte North are very like I feel like they give off like the same type of goat energy. I don't
hmm
know.
Well, one game I wanted to talk to you about specifically was when you got your first NCAA collegiate goal against Duke. Just talk about that goal and what was going through your head when it happened, because I don't know if you expected to get your first goal so soon as a freshman.
Yeah, no, I definitely did not expect that. I actually like I don't even know what was going through my head, but I kind of just like scooped up the ball and I just kept running and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna score right now." And I just shot it. And I didn't even know if it went in, but like everyone started cheering and stuff and I was like, "Yes." And also my grandparents were there, so I was like, "Good job."
Perfect for them, yeah.
Yeah.
So your team made it to the Final Four this year, which is insane. So what was that experience like? And especially you mentioned like one of your most memorable games was against North Carolina and how it was like basically like a clean sweep the first time. So what was that experience like for you, kind of as a freshman stepping into a role where you could play against a team like UNC?
Yeah, going to the Final Four was so surreal. I remember when I was younger, I'd be like at all the Final Fours and I'd be like at the game, I'm be like, I'm gonna be here one day, I'm gonna be here one day. And then I'm like, I'm a freshman and I'm already here and I'm playing, which is like so amazing. And it just like made all the like countless hours and like the hard work that I put in like over the years when like no one was watching and like the days that I like didn't want to do it, but my dad would be like, come on, Casey, like go do some wall ball. It like all made it count. And obviously like we didn't get the outcome we wanted, but it makes me like even more hungry to like be there again and make it to the national championship and win the national championship.
Now, as a freshman, you obviously got better throughout throughout each game that you played last year. So, what would you say has been sort of the biggest improvement you've made to your game this past season?
I would probably say my confidence. Obviously like I was super nervous going into the season, like whole new role, like being a freshman on a very like veteran team. But like as the games go on, like my confidence progressed. And also like I think it my confidence progressed because of my understanding of the defense more and like understanding my role in the defense more. And you just like mesh more as a unit like throughout the games. So I think that also contributed to it. Yeah, I would say my confidence.
Now, one thing I was interested to ask you about was you sort of talked about how it was a transition for you to play more of a zone defense than a man-to-man. What is that transition like as a defender, and what makes a zone defense different from a man-to-man, and how do you adjust to that as in a collegiate sense?
I think in a man to man, like you're with your specific person, like you're staying with that person, you're staying with your matchup. In a zone, it's more understanding of like working together as a unit and like it's like all the pieces of the puzzle need to be put together like correctly. So like if I'm like shifting in, the next person needs to be shifting out and we all need to shift in order to stop the play. So I think it's more of like on a communicating aspect and like just like thinking rather than like more of a physical aspect.
Yeah, for sure. And going back to like your confidence piece too, like that is so like important as a
Mhm.
freshman going into such like a competitive conference and a competitive college. Like having that confidence and like knowing that like you're there for a reason is just so important, and no one thinks about that going into it because you're just like thrown into a team that has been there for years, and you're just like, especially with the fifth years and seniors last year and like the COVID year, there were so many people that stayed and were there and had the experience. So it was, I know for me too, it was like the experience of it was definitely very, very like good to know like the first year from girls that are so much older.
Mhm.
So going back to your team, so what are some kind of team goals and expectations that you have for this next season?
We're definitely a new team this year. We have so many new faces, which is super exciting, honestly. And obviously, being at such a high level, we have the same expectations and goals of winning a national championship, winning an ACC championship, and winning the league. Those will always be our goals. Um, but this year will look totally different than it did last year, and the way we get to those goals, and even next year will be totally different. But yeah, winning a national championship, I would say.
Now, let's go on to a segment I like to call the non-lacrosse segment, where I ask you some non-lacrosse questions to get to know you a little bit more off the field, and we can answer some of these as well. So, first one is, if there was a movie made about your life, who would you want to play yourself?
Okay, so this is kind of funny because I don't really watch movies that much, so I don't know any actresses. But I was asking around. I asked like my parents and I asked my friends, and they said Reese. I wrote it down. Hold on. Reese Witherspoon. I
Okay.
thought I don't really know, like I don't know. But they said that's who would play me.
I think she was in Legally Blonde, but Abby
Yes,
probably would
that's
know
what.
more about that than I would.
Of course, that's a great movie.
I don't know who I would pick, honestly. Probably like Tom Holland. I'm a big fan of the Spider-Man movies, and I feel like we sort of look alike, so I'll go with him.
I'm kind of all over the place. I'm not really sure. In my interview, I said Margot Robbie because I love the Barbie movie.
Yes.
I don't know. I'm still on the fence with that one.
Now, if you could play a game with any professional sports team in the world, who would you pick?
I would definitely pick the New York Rangers. Um, I've always been like a lifelong fan of them ever since I was little. And playing in MSG would be super cool. And I don't know how to play hockey, but
Hmm.
uh, I've watched a lot of it. I don't know if I could really skate or not, but I would definitely love to play for them.
You're gonna hate my answer, Casey. Mine would be the Boston Bruins.
Oh no.
I think it would be a lot of fun to play at the Garden, my favorite arena in New England and just the East Coast. But no, I'm a big hockey fan as well. I don't know how well I would do, so I'd probably just be like a backup goalie where I would just sit on the bench and not have any effect on the game. But I think it would be so cool to be a part of an NHL team.
Yeah.
I would have to say I'm not a hockey person, so I'm gonna have to stick in my professional football area. But any team from Ohio, like Cleveland Browns, probably
Hmm.
have to pick them just because, I have to stand with Ohio here.
Now, next one is obviously we can't answer this, but who has the best style off the field on the Syracuse women's lacrosse team?
I would have to say Chloe Jones, number 34. She always has her like Lululemon sets on or like her free people outfits, and she always looks so cute coming from class to the locker room. And I'm always like, Chloe, your outfit looks so good today.
And then last on the cross question for you, Casey, is what's the most interesting thing you've read or seen this week?
Actually, this is interesting because my dad yesterday, like before I knew this was a question, sent me all these like quotes, and one of them actually really stuck with me. And it's you become unstoppable when you work on the things people can't take away from you. Things like your character, habits, mindset, and attitude. And I think he always sends me like those motivational quotes, but like that one really stuck with me, and I think it's very important.
That's a good quote. I like that a lot.
That's my parents too. Every single day I get something on like Instagram Reels that's
Yeah.
super inspiring, and I'm like, Mom, like I'm in class right now.
Well, let's get back to a couple of cross questions now before we end this interview off. I guess the first one I would ask is what should be done to help grow women's lacrosse from your perspective?
I think podcasts like this are super helpful, and like all these like Instagrams that I've been seeing, like because social media has become like such a huge thing, and just like interviewing players like this and like seeing players' perspectives, I think is awesome. Um, yeah, I think it's great what you guys do.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So from your position now, what advice do you have to, let's say you're talking to your younger self or a younger player that is kind of aspiring to be a college athlete or a college lacrosse player?
I would say do the little things. Like when I'm coaching like all these younger girls, I'm like, do 5 minutes of wall ball every single day, and like you will see such a difference. Like you don't need to do all these like crazy shooting drills. Just do 5 minutes of wall ball, and your stick skills will be great. And I think it's just like focusing on the things that you need to work on in private and like doing the things on your own, and then it will make your game so much better.
Well, one more question to end off this interview, Casey, is just do you have any shout outs you want to give to any of your teammates, family members, and friends? And who should we have on the podcast next?
Shout out to my roommates, Ella Blessy and Ashley Volpe, best roommates around. They're both on the Syracuse team. Shout out Emma Ward. I think you should have, I have two people you should have on, either Emma Ward or all of the Humphrey sisters.
Oh,
I
that
think
would be
that'd be
good.
awesome.
I do
That
like
would
that.
be interesting.
Yeah.
Well, oh, go ahead, Abby. I'm sorry.
I don't know. I just said we'll get on that one. That would actually be a good. Have all of them on here actually.
Well, Casey, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on our podcast. We really appreciate it. We think you're a great player and an even better person. And thank you so much for your time. It was awesome getting the chance to speak with you today.
Great. Thank you so much.
Have a good one, Casey.
Thank you. You too.